I'm not sure what's happening.
Okay. I can give him a call.
Okay, I keep seeing him pop up and I keep letting him in, and then like he goes away and then he pops up in the waiting room again and I let him in again.
Okay.
So I'm not sure if we're having an issue or what.
Okay, I'll investigate.
Great.
Jimmy, I can't figure out how to get my Zoom screen back. What? Can you show me?
Hi, Kevin. Hi, Andy.
Hello. Hey, Julie. How are you?
How's it going? We're good. I'm going to have the Cpdc take up the subdivision endorsement first.
Okay, great.
I'm not going to stick around for too long. And I have a plan for how we can get the signatures.
Awesome.
So, yeah.
Hold on.
Interesting.
Hey, Julie said maybe you were having trouble getting in. Okay, she said she was like trying to let you in and couldn't get you in.
Oh, I can see him now.
Bye.
There you are. Hi, Matt.
Hey, how are you?
Good. I saw that you kept trying to get in and I kept letting you in. So I didn't know if
Maybe it's my browser or something like that. I've been having issues with, I've been done, like keeps kicking me out a couple of times.
Well, here you are.
Nice to see you.
Hang on late notice or on short notice.
It's just no issues. Not like we have much else going on, right?
Yeah, I know. I don't like to assume that people have nothing better to do, but
No, but I mean, I'm home, and we want to, we got stuff we want to do, so we're good. We're good. I just hope our sign vendor knows that he was supposed to be on, Jack.
Yeah, I wasn't able to get a hold of Pat. I didn't have his mobile number, but hopefully.
Well, we could do it without him. We just thought if there are any really specific questions about, the construction of the sign, we'd have to refer to him.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah, I think Pat's on.
Oh.
Yeah, I was going to say, I got on like a minute late. I'm sorry. I was going to say.
Oh, no worries.
Oh, hey, Pat.
Hello.
Awesome.
Glad you're here.
Yeah. So sorry, I was trying to do it on my computer, and long story short, computer issues, better on the phone, so.
Perfect.
All right, and bear with us here. This is my first time hosting. I've got a lot going on my screen. But I see I see our chair, John, is here. Let me unmute him. Hi.
I'll go on mute until you need us.
Okay. So John's here. John, Heather, Tony, Pam. We don't have Nick and we don't have Rachel. They're going to be. And who am I missing? One more person. Oh, here's Rachel. I need a way bigger computer screen for this. Is what I'm realizing.
Doesn't even when you try it on an iPhone, it's even worse.
Hi, Rachel. Thanks for joining. You're right on time.
Yep. We wrapped up quickly, so thank you.
Great. So we could give maybe a couple more minutes. There's a couple people I'm expecting to join that I don't see here yet. And then I will at a certain point introduce you to our, since we're all kind of jumbled together, you know, some members are CPDC members and some members are, or some people are applicants. So I'll kind of talk through that and then go through some of the protocols for tonight. But I'm just going to let a couple more people get on the screen with us. Ray.
Hello? What? That's not working. Me.
Can you all see the agenda?
Yes,
Okay.
and just 3 participants at a time.
Yeah, it's just I blew it up so people can see the Zoom information. Not that any of you will need it, but other people.
I should be honest. Wait 10 minutes with you.
And okay. Okay. John, do you want to, should we go ahead and get started? You are muted. Let me see. Should we go ahead and, didn't work.
All right.
Okay. So what I'm going to do, hello, everybody. Maybe, John, do you want to call to order and then
Yeah,
action or, okay.
I'll call this meeting a CPDC to order. And Julie, right, if you can go over some logistics and ground rules and that sort of thing, I think that would be great.
Yeah, that's great. So let me just see what I have here. I have too many things on my screen. There we go. Right. So bear with me. I'm going to start by just muting everybody. Okay. And so on the screen with us tonight, we have Chair John Weston. We have other CPDC members, Rachel Hitch, Heather Klisch, Pam Adrian, and Tony Diarezzo. I hope I didn't forget anybody. We have a couple applications on our agenda tonight, and some of the applicants have also already joined the meeting. I'm going to start by just going through a few things about what's happening with this remote meeting tonight. So first of all, I'll be the host. So I will be in charge of muting and unmuting you and recognizing when you use the raise hand feature and when you want to speak, and then also letting additional people into the meeting. And if anyone has so I don't know how familiar you are all with Zoom. I'm probably the least familiar. To be honest, of all of us, I've only used it a few times, but I'm having a very quick learning curve, I guess, hopefully. So just to let you know, there are a few features that you can use if you want to indicate to me that you want to speak. There's a raise hand feature, which I think if you hover over your name and you get like an ellipsis with some options, and it's in there. So if you want to speak at any time, just indicate at any time that's appropriate, I should say, just indicate that, and I will acknowledge you to John, and then John will acknowledge you, and I'll unmute you so you can speak. Applicants will be muted until it's their time to present, so I will unmute you at that time. If you have any technical issues or any questions you want to ask that are not related to the material that we're discussing, but something else that's like a troubleshooting or anything like that, you can send me an email, you can send me an email, or you can actually send me a chat, which is the chat's on the screen. So that would be, I would see that more quickly. I will also be monitoring my email just in case there's anybody out there in the Great Blue Yonder that's trying to join and that's having problems, or that has feedback or questions that they want asked at the meeting and they're unable to attend any other way. So I will have a lot of things I'm troubleshooting here while the meeting is going on. Let's see. So what we'll do, John will go over this as well maybe, but what we'll do is we'll talk to the applicants about their applications, and then we'll go around one by one member at a time and do a roll call in terms of feedback. So you can give your initial thoughts at that time. And then during the discussion at any time, if you have additional questions, you can use the raise hand feature and I'll indicate to John that you have a question. All the visual meeting materials will be on my screen, so I'll be the only one sharing the screen. And I will do my best to go along with the applicants as I can. Of course, for any applicants, if there's anything you want me to show that you've submitted that I am not showing at the time, just let me know and I'll pull it up. And you can also please let me know if it's reading well or if it's big enough, if what you're seeing is working for you. And I think that about does it for me. I remembered I forgot to introduce staff planner Andrew McNichol. He's also with us tonight. And RCTV will be, I believe, broadcasting this live. They're here with us. And so the meeting is being held via Zoom. It will be recorded and it will also be broadcast live on RCTV. So thank you very much for bearing with me. Sorry, I'm just jumping around a lot. Like I said, it's a steep learning curve. So I will hand the meeting over to John. Let me just unmute him. All right. And take it away, John.
Great. Thank you, Julie. If you can scroll down or up a little bit so we can see the agenda on the screen.
All right. Sorry. Is this working?
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
So it's a 2-page agenda.
All right, we can start with that, right? So the first item, I'm just going to run down through here because right, as you can see here, that there's a lot of agenda items that have been continued. There's been a lot of discussion about holding public meetings in this format in this forum, and we want to make sure that the public has a chance to comment on anything that we typically have public hearings for, and not, I'm going to say, resort to not have to do it through this format, because there's a lot of people that can't do it through this format. So, but we are going to hold we are going to, discuss items where we typically don't have a formal public hearing, and ones that typically don't have a whole lot of public input on, so that people can continue to do the business that they need to do and we want them to do. So, so with that, right, there's an agenda item to go over the master signage plan at 475 Main Street. 3 items that have been both either we asked or they probably agreed, or might have been asked themselves, to continue to our June 8th meeting, at which time we are hopeful to be able to do this in person. And then are there other, can you scroll down a little bit more?
Sure. Sorry, I'm still figuring out how to manage my screen while I have all these things in the way. All right. Is that good?
Yep. Yeah. And then at the end, we will go over a Howard Street subdivision, definitive subdivision plan, which we have met numerous times on, and some other items to update. So with that, we'll go to the first item on the agenda, which is the master signage plan. And as Julie explained, what we'll do is we'll hear from the applicant about the plans, about what they're proposing. Cpdc, right? We will go and ask questions, and then if there's anyone on the public that wants to ask a question, as Julie said, use the raise hand button, and we'll go from there. So with that, Julie, can you turn it over to our applicant for the master signage plan? You have something to start with.
I was actually thinking we would start with the subdivision endorsement.
Okay.
Since that should be a quicker item. That's
Sure.
okay. Let me just turn them on and get their plan up. I don't know why it's not letting me unmute them.
You unmuted me.
I'm going to unmute everybody and then this is
I'm here. Andy Street's here.
catching. Maybe it's easier if I do it on the screen. Hold on. Let me try this again. All right. You know what? I'm going to allow everyone to unmute yourselves at the time that you're acknowledged, because for some reason it's not working for me to unmute people. So Andy and Kevin, if you can unmute yourselves, that would be great. And I will pull up your plan. All right. Is that a good perspective of it? Or do you need it zoomed in or different? Let me show you a different page. All right, we'll go to the plan and zoom in. Okay. So this is the Howard Street subdivision plan. You guys probably remember this. It wasn't that long ago that you approved the subdivision, definitive subdivision. It's a, I believe, 6-lot subdivision. They have prepared plans for endorsement, which requires a simple majority vote from the Cpdc. We have checked the endorsement plans against the decision and made sure that they have included all of the information they were supposed to include so that you could endorse these plans. So what we will need tonight is a vote of at least 3 of you to endorse these plans. And then what I have been working out with town council is a way for the applicant to receive a wet signature Mylar, which is, I believe, still what's required by the Middlesex South Registry of Deeds. And so the process that we think is probably most feasible at this time is that, and Andy and Kevin, I hope your ears are perking up for this, is that I'll need 3 Cpdc volunteers, and the applicant will send 2 sets of the Mylars in a tube to one Cpdc member's house with a Mylar pen, and then you'll have to sign it and send it to, drop it off or mail it or however you want to do it to the next Cpdc member, and that person will send it to the next Cpdc member, and then the final, that 3rd Cpdc member will send 1 copy back to town hall and send 1 copy back to the applicant. So we can coordinate this like offline in the upcoming days, but that's the process that other commissions are using to get signatures on things. And that is the least risk for the applicant in terms of having it filed at the registry without issue. So if that works for you and it works for the applicant, then that is what I would suggest we do.
That sounds fine on my end. This is Andy, by the way. Should I chime in with video, Julie? Does that make sense?
Yeah, video would be great.
All right.
It's not required, but it'd be great. So we have Andy Street and Kevin Greenwood here with us on behalf of this application.
That process is fine on my end.
Okay.
So just to be clear on what we have in front of us and what we need to vote to endorse, right? We already voted to approve this. This is the final plan. sort of all the conditions and all the discussion that we already had and approved, but in plan format, right? Do I have that right? And so then we endorse it so that it becomes the official plan for the subdivision.
Yes, that's correct.
Right.
And I don't know if you'd like Andy to go through any of the things that were added or pursuant to conditions that you had or the town engineer had, or if if you want that, you can just let Andy know.
I guess that would be great, because I think there were my recollection is that there were a couple of things that you were sort of working out the details on related to stormwater in the Conservation Commission, right? And that was my recollection. Maybe I was wrong, but if you could go through anything that you sort of put the details on, that would be great, just so we're all on the same page.
Sure. Yeah, and again, just for the record, this is Andy Street. I'm with Civil Design Consultants. So the plan is really the same for all intents and purposes from what was approved by this board. We made some minor tweaks to the infiltration basin over in lot 4 there. Really added an under drain. It's kind of the extent of it. Outside of that, I don't think there's any substantive changes to these plans from what was before you. We did some things like there was some walls that were associated with the yards of the houses that were close, if not slightly encroaching into the 35-foot buffer that we eliminated and graded out, things like that. But the roadway, the utilities, stormwater systems, all are really the same as they were last time you saw this plan set.
Any questions or comments from the rest of the board?
Let me see if I have any raised hands. No raised hands.
And then I guess I'm looking for a motion to endorse this.
Yeah. Rachel, do you want to make the motion?
Sure. Hang on. 1 second. Motion to endorse the Howard Street definitive subdivision plan. Is that what we need? Anything else?
I think that's fine.
Okay. So, Julie, how do we do this?
Yeah, so for the roll, you're supposed to do votes as a roll call. So what you'll need to do, all the CPDC members, you'll need to unmute yourselves. And John will go through and say your name, and you'll say yay or nay, and I will record it.
All right. Rachel Hitch.
Yay.
Heather Klisch.
Yay.
Where else? Who? Nick Safina.
I don't think he's present.
See Nick's name on here. He doesn't need to vote though.
He's there, but I don't see him either. Oh, here he is. He's not muted, but I can't hear him.
All right. Well, we don't need everyone, right? Pamela, Adrian,
Yes. Yay.
and I vote yay as well.
And Tony. I guess you don't need Tony. Never mind.
Sorry, Tony.
Sorry, I didn't mean to sound so brutal.
Story of my life.
And I'm a little out of practice. Anyway, thank you. So that's great.
And so we'll identify Nick as abstaining.
Yeah. And I'll need 3.
Raising his hand though.
He's got his hand up.
Oh, I can't.
Nick, raise 1 finger for yay, 2 fingers for nay.
This is like snail mail.
All right. That's great. And I'll just need 3 volunteers to do the signature chain. So Just if you want to volunteer, just say your name.
I can
I'm
start
Adrian.
off, Julie.
Okay. John will start.
I
Okay.
can sign.
Was that Pam?
Yes.
Okay, so you'll be second, and then
I can do it also. I mean, I think I'm walkable, I think, to your house, John, somewhere. I think we're both in precinct 3, right?
Yeah. Oh, I'm in 7.
Oh, you're in 7? Oh, sorry. Oh, well.
This is Heather. I'm really close to John, so
Oh, yeah.
I'm happy to
Oh, okay.
volunteer.
Okay.
Yeah.
okay, that's great. And then we can coordinate. We'll coordinate this offline tomorrow. But thank you very much.
Good.
So Julie, just one more quick question. Like, not just Julie, but this was the, my understanding, this is the last application and approval we needed. Is that correct? There's no other site plan review process or anything here, right? This was the subdivision.
Is this Andy who's talking? I'm sorry.
Yes, it is. I'm sorry. Yep.
No, it's okay. So no, there is no site plan review associated with this.
Okay.
But there are additional forms that are part of the subdivision control law and additional steps that need to be taken prior to getting building permits and occupancy permits and transferring lots and things like that per your decision. Yeah.
Sure.
You know.
Yeah. No, I that's what I thought. I just wanted to confirm. So,
Yep.
and we'll coordinate, Julie, about how to where to get plans and all that sort of thing.
Yes. Yeah. We'll coordinate tomorrow.
Great.
All right. Sounds great.
Sounds good. Thank you all very much.
Thank you, Andy.
All right. Bye now.
All right.
All right. Now on to the master signage plan. Right?
Yes.
All right.
And is this good? Make it bigger. I need 2 screens, I've learned, for the next meeting. Way too much on one screen. All right. Should I make this bigger?
I mean, it looks good to me. I don't know if anybody else needs to.
If you can make it a little bigger, that would be good.
All right.
Yeah, that's good.
Great. And we have Jackie Maggiore, Matt Maggiore, and Ray Bogos with us tonight on behalf of this application.
I'm also here too, by the way.
Good evening, folks.
Oh, I'm sorry. And Pat Devine. I'm sorry.
Yep. Thank you. Yeah. Good evening.
So I don't know who the main spokesperson is here, but if you can just go over sort of what we're looking at and where we're headed with this, that would be great.
Jackie, Matt, I hope you don't mind. I'll take over real quick.
Yes, please, Pat. Thank you.
No problem. So we're going over the proposed signage for Rise 475 here. Ideally as well, we have the future tenant signage for the other 2 spaces that's allowed here. What we're looking to accomplish is approval on the facade signage for Rise 475. We've submitted the layout showing the elevation, dimensions, everything, lighting, front lighting on the canopy there, and then the 2 future tenants. Although we have them spaced there, that's more to let future tenants know what their parameters are that they're allowed for these spaces. Obviously, whenever the new tenant proposes their signage, it has to go before the board as far as design and copy and color and everything like that. But the goal of this is to, 1, approve the signage for the Rise 475 space, and 2, kind of approve a template as where the future tenants can know this is the height, this is the color, lighting, illumination effects, everything like that.
Great. So what you're looking at here, right, are these primarily, right? We have the 3 signs across the front, non-illuminated, that are applied to the front of the brick above the doors, and then
I'm sorry to interrupt you. So the sets of letters themselves are not individually illuminated, either face illuminated or halo. What we have settled on, as far as at least with the Rise signage, is there's just an LED bar resting on the top of the canopy that lights in front of the channel lettering there. There's not individual front lit LEDs, no backlit individual halo light. Essentially, it's similar to a spotlight that flashes onto the front of the signage.
and that light bar that's underneath it, lighting upward, or
Yes, so it rests on the canopy. It rests on the canopy. It's a horizontal light bar. I want to say it kind of varies the width that they can stretch. I want to say that this one's probably 4 to 6 feet, and what it does is it rests a few inches in front of the signage while sitting on the top of the canopy. So nothing is flashing out forward. Nothing is flashing out back and bouncing off the building. It's essentially just, illuminating a spotlight vertically up to illuminate the front set of the letters.
okay.
And this is Matthew speaking. This would be in the spirit of the bylaw for this district, we believe. And originally we had some halo letters laid out, as Julie might know, but we studied a little bit more into the bylaw and then changed the lighting to what's proposed now.
Sure. I just wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page of what's being proposed. And then, Julie, can you, right, there's another page which shows the sign, right? Is that the sign on the north side?
Hold on. For some reason, oh, you know what? I think it might have been part of this.
I believe, if I'm not mistaken, what you might be referring to is that there's a Rise 475 along with a QR code that's displayed underneath the proposed balcony on the left side of the entry, showing the Rise 475 logo along with the QR code to the left side of that logo. Now this piece is not actually any dimensional signage. There's nothing that's going to protrude off the building. There's nothing that is illuminated. Essentially, this is just a vinyl applicant to go directly to the left side. I'm not sure if they're showing it properly in the picture that's displaying on the screen right now. I spoke to Andrew earlier, who told me that this piece, the restrictions are that it has to be under or equal to 4 square feet. What we have proposed right now is 4 square feet. It's that QR code and logo, 1 foot high by 4 feet wide. So we are in that restriction there. But again, like I was saying, this isn't any dimensional signage, whether raised lettering, nothing illuminated, nothing. It's a vinyl decal, so it's going to be flush with the building, flat with that siding location there. Obviously within the parameters of that 4 square feet that are allowed.
So I just want to make sure that I understand this. So what we're looking at now on the left-hand side where it says Rise 475, sort of up above, that's just, you're just showing a zoomed in of the window application.
So what you're looking at here on the screen, there's the left drawing that shows the kind of the night version of it, and then the right version that shows the current construction state of the space. The left side shows the channel lettering that is raised dimensional letters that are fixed to the building, and then there you can see on the left side there's that LED spotlight that is illuminating up in kind of a triangular fashion to to illuminate Rise 475.
Okay.
The below effect that shows that QR code with a vertical line and then Rise 475 apartments, that is a vinyl graphic. So if you look at that compared to the right side, if that's where you see that that kind of blocking at the moment, that's where that vinyl graphic is going. So it's actually not being applied to a window. It's being applied to either the concrete siding.
It's a section of aluminum composite paneling that it's mounting to.
Yeah.
Yeah, I understand that now. I had it. I thought that the nighttime view of that 475 was actually a different sign that was hanging somewhere else. But yeah, I'm with you.
Oh no, I can totally understand that because the left rendering shows the architectural drawing, while the right rendering shows the actual physical state of things. Yeah. So yeah, that I could definitely understand where that could be. That could be confusing.
And it looks different now because obviously it's basically done. So it's even the photos from quite a while ago.
Yeah. Questions from the board?
Yes. Can you hear me?
Yep.
I note that you've got two different fonts, one above and one below. I suggest that they be the same since they're in such close proximity.
That's a definitely a good note. That would actually have to be up to Matt and Jackie. There, I know that I believe they used a third-party designer. Usually they use Oz for some of these things. So I think that the top view was kind of intended for like the stylistic design, where the bottom one was kind of meant to be more the utilitarian, where we're showing the name and the QR code. But I agree with your point. That's just kind of up to them and their partners on this project.
This is Matt. If that's the sentiment of the board, I could let Ray and Jackie chime in, but I would have no problem with that.
Okay, good. Thank you.
I'm fine with consistency across the board. It makes sense.
Yeah, great. All right, so I can have my design team, update that tomorrow morning and resubmit to either the town if that's necessary. Totally up to you guys. Like I said, I can have somebody in the morning just, update that and resubmit it immediately if that's what everyone's looking for.
Sounds good.
Tony has a comment, John.
All right, the application has the halo lighting, a different size for the sign. Are we going to require a new application, or will we reference these in the decision?
So,
sorry, Pat. I did get an updated application today, which depicted the correct information of external lighting and the correct size of the signs. So I uploaded that to the drive, and I hope you can see it now if you're there.
I apologize. I don't think I have that on the screen. Although, actually, maybe I do.
This may have been sent over fairly recently. I spoke with Andrew this morning, and I had my team modify these, the application, probably around noontime, maybe afternoon. So if you have something on your screen a little bit earlier than that light, it might not reflect some of the updates made today.
Yeah, Andrew, the form on the drive, for some reason, it's still reading 4 inches. Well, it changed it to external lighting. 23 by 97.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the new sizing?
Yes. Yep.
Yeah. Okay.
Yes, it is.
Is the application I have on the screen the correct application, Andrew?
Yes, but I do think that we should add that second residential signage of the 4 square feet, just so we know the dimensions of that as well.
So you're saying that for the secondary kind of vinyl QR code space? Okay. Now, is there a separate section? We typically, when my company submits applications for permitting, it's usually dimensional signage. Vinyl graphics and vinyl applicants like this usually don't go through the permitting process. But I do know that at this point, since we are, doing this whole process right now, whatever you guys are looking for, whatever you seem is important, we can definitely give you any details that you feel required. Like I said, typically though, when we do like a vinyl, applicant like this, we do not go through the vinyl, the permitting process. But if that is kind of contingent with what is being applied for above, we'd have no problem, submitting any addendums that you guys feel necessary for that.
Yeah, if we're changing the font to be consistent, may as well just mention it while you're doing that.
Yeah, that'd be great. We can just put it under wall sign 2, just 1 by 4. That way we at least have those dimensions somewhere.
Easy enough.
Yeah, totally agree. We could totally do that for you tomorrow as well.
Thank you.
No problem.
And while we're at it, the future tenant signage, excuse me, didn't have a proposed length to them. I think that could be due to any number of businesses moving in might require different lengths based on the name of their business, but just wanted to point that out and how we are going to go about that, if it's maximum what zoning allows, or if there's a specific number we want to put on there.
I think we were trying to depict the total mass for visual purposes at this point.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, you were spot on that whatever tenant you get is going to have their unique brand. They require less space than this. The intention was to give you an idea of the overall sizing and spacing that we would be allowed to have.
This is Nick. Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. So if it's going to say, if it's going to have a height, it can't have a TBD. It would have to have a max, right? Because there's a maximum assigned to it. So you could say TBD up to max allowed or something like that. But
that's what I was thinking as well.
400 feet.
Yeah, that'd be great.
We can note that with the TBD was just referencing the tenant to be determined.
Yeah, that's fine. It's just that what happens is then the tenants look at that and they might misinterpret it to mean that they could put 30 letters across there, any length that they want, but they'd be limited to a square footage.
Okay. We can take care of that, correct?
Yes, we could definitely do that as well. I was going to say, we had it in place, just kind of under the assumption that obviously there'd have to be kind of a second stage of, applying for the design review for this piece. But that's definitely a good idea to kind of limit the square footage. So regardless of if future tenants' logo is longer horizontally or longer vertically, they know how to best optimize their space to reflect their logo in the approved perimeters.
And so what we're looking for with the master signage plan is exactly that, like exactly where on the building and the size of the sign that would be appropriate when you look at the building as a whole. And so, you know, let's call that, right, a signboard, although in this case it may or may not be a board. So we want to identify what that maximum signboard size would be. I guess in this case, my question is, you know, is it limited? So we know what the height is limited to, but there is, for this building and the way that it's designed, there's some limitation on the width that is likely smaller than what is allowed by zoning. I would think that you would want, and I can see this, I can see us limiting it one of two ways. Either limiting that signboard area to be only as wide as, I don't know how to explain this, the inside edge of where it looks like it's a column.
No, I totally understand that. Where you're kind of seeing from, you know, where the brick, what's kind of shown as brown in this architectural drawing here, which essentially the inside of that, you know, half square on one left side to the right side of that half square, showing the windows there. So where future TBD, you know, it's showing the optimal height as what it's represented in the drawing here. The horizontal axis would their restrictions would be limited to you know, to that left and right side that doesn't extend into, you know, kind of the pillar there. So what I can do is I can have my design team. So we set the height restriction at what the letters were for RISE 475. So even though that brown brick space, you know, in the future TBT spaces, you do see that there is a little bit of wiggle room, you know, on that y-axis. We could still, you know, keep it at that 23, you know, or I'm not sure if there's any updates to that, but keep it at that 23 height limit, and then we could increase the length limit to what is shown in that, you know, half square from left to right side.
I think that makes a lot of sense, because what we end up doing, just from a process standpoint, right? What we end up doing is, if you know, if your tenant, you and your tenant have a sign coming in, as long as it's, you know, I guess it makes it a whole lot easier if we agree on what those dimensions are, and then if they propose something that complies with both those that size and our general sign regulations, then it can be easily approved, and oftentimes doesn't even need to come to this board. So, you know. Yeah,
no, I mean, I totally agree. When we can present the tenants with what the absolute maximum is for them, here we're kind of, you know, displaying to them what is like a reasonable maximum, because I'm sure it's up to you know, the majorities and their partner, but it's like, but even though you're saying that we could allow for the space to go from, you know, left side of that brown section to the right side, that might not be what they want for that space. So we provided it as just kind of a placeholder, but that's a good idea where we can kind of display the absolute maximum, both X and Y access, what they're allowed. And then from that point, it's a lot, you know, simpler of a design review at that point.
Yep. Other questions or comments from the board?
Yes, I brought something to Julie's attention. Julie, did you want to present that?
Let me see. How do you mean, Pam?
Well, our
via chat, or do you mean via email, or?
No, I had sent you two.
A few days ago.
a few days ago.
Yeah, okay. So it is in the list of conditions. What Pam is referring to is the current temporary signage that's hanging on the building. We do actually require a sign permit for temporary signage, and we have some limitations on the size. So we do have a condition that you ensure that you are complying with the size that we allow, and that you receive a permit from the building commissioner as part of your process for all of your signs as soon as you can. Does that help?
So Julie, you're asking for us to give you an indication of what the dimension of the banners is currently, and that it complies with zoning for temporary signage?
Yes, and in the decision, I list the sections of the zoning bylaw that you'll need to look at to make sure you comply with.
Okay. All right, Jackie, we can handle that, correct?
Yep, I have the information.
Okay. So, do we want to roll this into that, or is that a simple? As long as we're compliant, it's just a matter of providing the info and getting a building permit.
Yeah, that's just something you'll need to button up before you actually officially receive. I mean, it's a condition of the certificate of appropriateness that the CPDC will be voting on tonight, and it will just be something that you'll need to button up before you get your official sign permit for your signs.
Okay.
That temporary sign permit application does not exist on the CPDC. So you can just work that out with the building commissioner.
Absolutely done now.
Great. Thanks, Pam. Other questions or comments? Heather, right?
Yes, thank you. I've got a question about the LED external lighting. I'm wondering if you know if that's a high color temperature light, so it's going to be kind of bright and blue, or is it a warmer color?
It's definitely a warmer color.
I don't put anything on my buildings that's not 2,700 or 3,000, and those are very appropriate. We don't like surgery lights. We don't like blue lights. We don't like fluorescence. So it's nice, warm. I would guess it's 2,700 or 3,000. Pat, can you tell us?
I believe it's actually 2,700. It's a very warm light. The thing is, rather than a solid laser beam kind of focus of a light, it's a longer horizontal LED strip. So what it does is it kind of illuminates the the signage again in a horizontal manner, but does not extend vertically very much at all. We don't use those high frequencies very often, and it's especially in this location we're looking for some warmer neutral light where it's not going to distract people, but at the same time it still draws some attention to the facade at all hours of the day.
To reassure you guys, it's in our best interest not to have that be too bright, because it's going to keep the residents up at night that are above there.
Correct.
So it's in our best interest to make sure it's strictly just lighting that site. Similar to like a monument sign you see, like on displays on the stone walls, little flashing lights go up there. They don't go much further than that. That's kind of the approach we're going for here. Just want to make sure it's lit up so you can read what building it is, but no more than that.
Okay, thank you.
Sounds good.
Keeping with the LED lights, is there anything to cover the maximum wattage? And are they dark sky compliant? Do we need to add a cutoff? The lights would not be part of the signage according to what you're saying. So this is basically our only opportunity to ensure that they're not too bright, they're not shining where they shouldn't, and so forth.
Well, the cut sheet says 45 watts. They're not dark sky compliant, obviously, if they're pointing up. So the bigger question is, what do you do when the snow hits it? And I think the shielding, Tony, would probably have to be on the ends, because you could probably see this as you come up the street. You come up the street and rise in elevation, you'll be looking down a little bit, and so you're potentially going to see this light source.
the projection of the canopy, I believe, is less than a foot off of the building. So, in terms of snow drifting and collecting on there, would probably be rather minimal.
Okay.
And I mean,
I just can't tell from the cut sheet.
I have a very similar indirect light on my mantle. You know, basically, it's a linear uplight fixture. It's more decorative lighting than it is spotlighting. It's, you know, meant to create an ambiance as opposed to being offensive.
I just can't tell from the cut sheet whether the LEDs are inboard of the shell of the housing or whether they're sitting on top of the housing. So, for example, the Busa building there, the Capri Pizza one, you know, those LEDs sit on top of the housing. You can see every single one of them. So it looks like a bunch of Christmas lights rather than, say, a linear element.
We could look into that, but I can tell you that I'm not going to be interested in a choppy looking light fixture. It's going to be a linear illumination. We can put that in the decision.
I mean, the intent of the light, we've used this similar light source for hundreds of properties in Massachusetts, and in fact, the way that the light is exposed, it's closed off, you know, from the horizontal perspective. So if you're coming from the north or south on the street, there's nothing going to be, you know, you're not going to see. It's not going to be flashing in your face, and there's also not going to be like a condensed light exposed. What it is it's pointing up. It's you know, it's not going to be like that effect that you're anticipating or that you were mentioning there. It's a closed horizontal light beam that essentially all ends of it are. It's a box that all ends are closed with the exception of that top piece. So, so the only illumination effect is pointing upwards.
And I assume that the Rise 475 will be on, the lighting for that will be on all night, where the lighting for the businesses would close at the end of day.
Could you say that again, please?
I assume that the lighting for Rise 475 would be on all night, and the lighting for the businesses would be off at close of business.
I mean,
tenant specific.
Well,
you know, we'd love to say yes, but you know, some certain tenants are going to want their signage on a few hours after business, and you know, a few hours before business. You know, if that's.
We do have a lighting control system that was for the entire building. Not sure it can be partitioned so that different fixtures are coming on at different times. You know, in my eyes, all the exterior lighting is on the building until a certain point in time, and then the lighting goes off.
I'll rephrase Tony's question a little bit. We have restrictions in the town, bylaws in the town that lighting for businesses have to be shut off shortly after they close. And so I guess that's not part of the question was not a question. That was a statement.
Yeah, but John, didn't we determine that actually doesn't apply in Business B? Remember the hair salon above Christopher's used to be on all the time at night, the halo lighting, and then I kept bringing it up to Gene, and we looked it up, and there is nothing in the Business B, I think, that says they have to be turned off. So before we put that in there, let's confirm that.
If I can chime in, I'm not sure it's actually in the zoning bylaw. I think it might be pursuant to whatever the site plan approval says in it. And I know typically, at least in the last 4.5 years since I worked for the town, we put a condition in the decision that talks about lighting being shut off at the close of business. So I would have to check and see if there's one in the decision for Rise 475 or not. But we can check the zoning bylaw and see as well.
zoning, we limit window signs to hours of operation, but I don't think we do for wall signs in a business district.
Okay, so I stand corrected.
We do for businesses in residential zoning districts, but this obviously doesn't meet that criteria.
So in the draft certificate of appropriateness, it does say that the business lighting will be shut off.
It does. I was going to add that as a condition.
Half an hour after business hours.
I'm sorry, John, in the
draft certificate of appropriateness.
Okay.
There is a condition that the commercial signage be not illuminated beyond hours of operation, and we can set not an hour later than business or something if we want to.
Right, and I thought that's where we were headed, because that doesn't necessarily apply to the lighting of the residential building.
It's condition 5 then.
Yep.
I don't even remember writing that. Too many things. I think maybe Andrew, you probably wrote that.
I probably wrote that in there.
Yeah. Good one.
Yep.
So is that okay with everyone,
Yes.
the way it's written, or?
That's acceptable.
That has been our standard practice. Nick, do you have some other thought on that?
Not on that, just that the sign in the rendering is slightly bigger than 23 inches. It's probably the rise sign. So it's probably almost 3 inches taller, the way it's shown. Just so the applicant understands, it's not going to come up that high on that soldier course if it's starting where it's shown to start.
We can update the design on our end to reflect that more
No,
properly.
you don't have to. I'm just letting you know that it's not as big as you think it is, and so if that's what you're intending, it's the 23 inches is smaller than that. The sign permit application says 23 inches. That's what they'll hold you to.
Mm-hmm.
It's just smaller than what's shown.
Okay, so for Matt and Jackie, from what's shown in the permit, that's exactly what's approved is what we're going to fabricate in-house and install. But there is, like you said, the discrepancy there where the rendering itself might, might be subjective, like 3 inches in that case. I can in-house update that and resubmit to you guys so you can see. But as far as the permit application process is concerned, what we fabricate and produce will be correct.
I think we're splitting hairs. I'm fine with it.
Yeah, I think it's fine.
Cool.
All right, other comments from the board?
None.
Can somebody summarize for me what was just? I missed something in that conversation. I wasn't sure what you were talking about.
This last piece that Nick brought up, you mean?
Yeah, what piece was he talking about?
Well, what he was saying, my interpretation of what he was saying was that rendering that we're looking at now isn't quite 23 inches high. And so he was just trying to alert the owners that it might not be exactly as it shows out in that rendering.
Okay.
And they're fine. Yeah.
So are we keeping all of the dimensions that we talk about in our decision same or changing?
We are keeping, yes. The one thing that we want to do is get the dimension get the dimension for the other two signs as part of the master signage program,
Yes.
of what that that area is between the pillars. That pillars.
Yep.
Let's use the word piers since it's been around for 10,000 years, and that's what it applies.
Thank you. So I think the changes to this, I guess I'll say I'm not. I think that including the information related to the window application sign is good to have in here for clarity. But I think if you, Andrew, if you can make a note on that, right, that's really not part of the master signage plan.
Right.
Right. If they change that, all that, it's good. It's there for information only.
Okay. Will do.
Because, 3 years from now, I don't want us or some board going back and said, well, you said that that's the sign that you were going to have. Like, right. We're not.
Right.
So, so I think that's the only change that I'm hearing. Well, I'm hearing the change to the master signs program, the plan width, the change in the font on the window sign. And then is there any other information that is needed? And I'm looking more at Nick, even though he doesn't know it, about the specs for the lighting. I'm gonna guess.
No, I'm looking at the cut sheet, and so is it actually 2 strips? Is it actually 2 LED strips or just a single?
So I'm not sure the exactly the length. Either way, it's not going to be 2 strips stacked. The length, I mean the width of the strip is going to be the same. It's just a matter of how many LEDs in one unit we can get, to fill that horizontal space there. But nothing, like I said, nothing is going to be stacked vertically, or you're not going to have any hot spots in any area. It's going to be evenly distributed. It's just a matter of the module itself, if it's going to be condensed into one physical unit or two units that are side by side. But the discrepancy between the two would not be anything that would affect the lighting factor or the visibility of the signage.
Okay.
So, Andrew, Julie, are you guys clear on sort of what we need to change or what the conditions are we're changing for the certificate of appropriateness?
Yes, I've been updating mine along the way.
All right.
Should be good.
I have a question. It's showing on the screen. It's in the highlight. I don't know if that's something that you want to talk about. No blade signs were proposed as part of this master signage plan, but I do think it's possible that future tenants might want to have one. And so we were trying to contemplate that scenario and whether, and I think actually in this condition, we should probably say something that it also needs to comply with the bylaw, but, and there's only one blade sign per tenant. But is that something that you would allow us to approve administratively or proposed, or would you want to require a revision to the master signage plan?
Personally, I read that and had no problem with it as written. Although I agree, you probably want to add the caveat about them being compliant with it. So.
Right.
Anyone else? Comments on that? I see some
No problem.
some shaking of heads there. So
Yeah, that's a good way to do it. If they're going to comply, they're just going to come to us and they're going to comply and we'll say yes and we'll waste everyone's time.
Yeah, I'm fine with that.
Because we did encounter this on this problem on another building. So anyway.
good. So where do we go from here? Meaning, we don't have, right, I think if, Andrew has the version of the certificate of appropriateness that we're voting on, right? You've marked it up. But this, I guess, Julie, you sign off on this anyways, right?
I do.
So
yes.
you'll ensure that it reflects the conversation and the discussion that we just solidified.
Yeah, I'm sure Andrew will do a good job, and I will review it as well.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. Julie, do you see any comments from anywhere, anyhow?
I haven't yet. Let me just check one last time. Emails. Let me see. No emails. No chats, and one more. Any raised hands? Nope. So I think you're good.
Okay. So looking for a motion to approve the certificate of appropriateness.
Yeah, sorry, I have to make
Right.
sure that I'm reading the right thing here. Motion to approve the master signage plan certificate of appropriateness for 475 Main Street as amended.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All right. So roll call vote. Pam,
Yes.
Rachel,
Yes.
Heather,
Yes.
Nick,
Yes.
and myself is yes.
Thank you very much, folks.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
We
Appreciate
appreciate
it.
your time.
Jackie, Matt, and
everyone.
we'll be in touch with you guys tomorrow or the next day.
Okay.
Excellent. Thanks so
Thank
much. Thank you so much, folks.
Thanks.
Have a good one.
Thank you, guys.
Bye.
Your trains. Have a nice evening. Stay healthy.
You too.
You too.
Bye.
So much.
Oh, sorry for that. I just realized what I just did to your screens.
Closed everything down.
Yeah, but hopefully I didn't cause any seizures. All right.
So, the next item on the agenda, can we just, can we approve do we need to go through these one at a time? Or what do we need to do with these?
So I think that you should, and you as chair can just do this. You can just literally state that each, the name and that it's continued to June 8th at such and such time. And then the locations, which will be select board meeting room if town hall is open to the public, or remote via Zoom if town hall is still closed to the public, with the caveat that hearings can be further continued if the CPDC is not ready to host them remotely. So, and you as chair can just say that. I would say it out loud though for all of them.
All right. So, let's see here. Let me hold on a sec so I can read this a little bit better. So we will continue the public hearing for a major modification to approve site plan review of 107 Main Street, Fusilli's Restaurant, to June 8th, 2020 at 7:30 at the select board, at the town hall at the select board's meeting room, or what did you say? Or remotely if we are not able to meet in person at that time. we are going to continue the public hearing for site plan review of 267 Main Street, which is a Stonegate Construction Corporation, to June 8th, 2020 at 7:45 at Town Hall, Selectmen's Meeting Room, or remotely if we are not able to meet in person at that time. We will continue our public hearing for a minor amendment to the approved PUDR special permit for Johnson Woods from the Johnson Woods Realty Corporation to June 8th, 2020 at 8 p.m. at Town Hall in the Selectmen's Meeting Room, or online if we're not able to meet at that time in person. And we'll continue the public hearing for site plan review at for 258 to 262 Main Street by application by Reading CRE Ventures LLC, and we'll continue that to June 8th, 2020 at 8:15 p.m. Town Hall, so it's meeting room, or online if we're not able to meet in person at that time.
Great, thank you.
So that takes care of our agenda for the major items on it, right?
Yes.
So what do we have next, Julie?
So I wanted to take a moment to kind of chat with you all about the possibility of remote public hearings starting in June, and kind of gauge your comfort level or any feedback or suggestions that you might have. We are, trying to be inclusive while also being flexible, knowing that there are many different angles in which you can view something like this. So, there's the staff perspective, the board perspective, the developer perspective, the public's perspective. So we're trying to please all the people all the time, and figure out a way to meet in the middle if we need to, if this state of emergency or town hall closure to the public continues for much longer. We know developers have acquired or have agreements on properties in town that they would like to start permitting or continue the permitting process for. So, we recognize that if this goes on much longer, we might, run into a couple problems. One would be a backlog, where you have just so many applications piling up that when we do eventually open in some form or fashion, the agendas are enormous. Or just, a general sort of, kind of starting off a process on a negative note if developers start to get weary of waiting. Now, given that the legislation does allow you to, it has told all the timeframes, so it does allow you to continue things, and it can be unilaterally done by the chair. You do not have to hold public hearings at this time. So you can, but you don't have to, and that's something that I've been trying to talk to each land use board. I've talked to all the chairs of the land use boards, and periodically over the past 6 to 8 weeks, and I'm trying to kind of meet the boards where they are while having a unified land use board approach to things in town. So it's a bit of a balancing act, but the long story is the short story is that I would like to get your feedback on what's the protocols that are proposed and what you want to do going forward. So with that.
So I'll give my perspective first. And, Julie and I have talked about this a couple times actually. And personally, I see a big part of our role is to provide that, provide a forum for neighbors and people in the community to sort of understand what development is happening and how that may impact their life or their property or what have you. And so I want to make sure that whatever we do, we provide sort of as robust public involvement as we can. And I'm not sure that that this forum and this format provides that kind of involvement that I think is robust. I'll say I've been on the other side of this, where I've been supporting an applicant in front of a planning board, and it's difficult. It's difficult to get your point across in this sort of a format. We happen to be, like the meeting we just had, it was small enough that I think we could keep it pretty open. But I fear that, if we added, a lot of people, a lot of the public in there, that would have been, Julie would have had a harder time trying to keep order. I'll put it that way, in organization. And so, but I personally, I also think that that it would be good for people that can be doing stuff and creating some business activity. I certainly wouldn't want to stop that. And so, my thought is that if we can keep projects moving that want to continue to move, I'd like to be able to support that, but make sure that in this whole process that we don't get so far that we aren't cutting people's voices out. And so, sort of making sure to the applicant that they know that we could start something and then, but we're not going to finish it. That we're going to, carry these things on at least until we can have some live public meetings. That's my thought, but I'd be happy to hear everyone else's.
This is Heather. Well, I say that because not all of us are on the screen at the same time. Those are all such good thoughts, and I'll just add for consideration, I actually in the last couple of weeks participated as a public commenter for the first time through work on a public hearing that was being held virtually like this. And I have to admit, I was skeptical at how it would go. And it went really well. This was before a 21-person board, and I think there was something like, I want to say like 75 people on the Zoom. Not everybody was commenting. And what it took, I throw this out there for logistics, I would have a hard time seeing Julie both doing her regular job during these meetings and watching all of the people who wanted to raise their hand and comment. So it might take what I find is it takes somebody who is dedicated. I don't know if that becomes Andrew, if he's taking notes, or if it becomes another board member that is watching the raise hand and chat function, and John drawing it to your attention. This is how it went in the hearing that I commented on. It actually went so well, where they basically said, so I'll call on people, the chair will recognize that person, then you'll get to speak, and then you were muted again. So it worked, and if we have something that we feel like we want to try to keep moving along, I would be open to trying it out, I guess with the big caveat that if it's not going well, or if it's a situation where it feels like not everybody who ought to have a voice on it was able to have a voice, that we wouldn't be proceeding without everyone being able to speak to it. I hope that was clear the way I described it. It basically takes somebody to be sure they're watching who wants to speak.
No, that's the same situation that I had when I was working on this. It was presenting in front of a planning board, and they had someone specifically managing the Zoom, getting people muted and unmuted and all of that. So yeah, that's a job in and of itself. And this was in Texas, and the framework that they have really didn't allow for public comment. You can make a comment, but only at a prescribed time, and it wasn't the kind of public involvement that we have regularly, or that I'd want us to have, which is maybe coloring my thought process.
Yeah, and even I guess it would depend on what kind of protocols we'd want to have as a board. I know even my own experience, the way this meeting was run is it had public comments, a time slot for public comments at the beginning of the agenda, and everybody went through and commented on what they were going to comment on, and then this board went through their agenda, and I used the chat function to write the host saying, is this an appropriate time to offer a comment? And this person said, yes, absolutely, I'll call on you and unmute you. So they were flexible also, the way they ran it, they were flexible about when they took public comments.
No, that's helpful. Anyone else?
Sorry, go ahead, Pam.
My question is, what's the total number of participants that were allowed, and do we ever expect that? I know we've had some heated meetings with 100 people in the room. What's our limitation?
I can answer that. The license that the town hall has, and there's a license for each department. So the public services department has one, which is the one I'm using tonight, allows for 300 people in a meeting. So
more than adequate.
Exceed that.
Right. And people are able to call in using their iPhones, right?
Yeah.
So that they can do that in the comfort of their office or home. Okay.
Yeah, my understanding is there are 3 main ways people can participate. So they can either do the Zoom video and audio. They could do the Zoom, just the audio, or they could call in with a phone. So one thing that might be challenging there is that I believe per the open meeting law, any participant is supposed to be able to see the material that's being presented if there are visual materials. So,
okay, so the follow-up to that is RCTV broadcasting simultaneous to a meeting. And if that's the case, then they can see it that way.
That's correct.
Okay, no limitation. Okay, so we've met that hurdle.
In theory, right? You never know what people have as bandwidth or devices or access to the house. But yeah, in theory.
Okay. I'm satisfied with that. This seems to work for us.
So I guess I had 2 questions. One is, I do think that just noticing that we continued 4 items, 2 of which I think are popular, and wondered if we can't keep the agendas shorter, knowing that there's going to be a learning curve on the management of it. And I'm the last one to ever suggest this, but have shorter agendas more frequently in order to handle that. However, my second question is just, given that the governor is likely to suggest some new suggestions, I don't even know what to call them, coming up soon, whether the health department has thought about what a next phase in-person thing could look like. So for example, the select board room doesn't seem like it would work, but the high school might, in terms of allowing people to spread out. I mean, to argue against myself, I think the piece that I feel the most discomfort with is just the number of new people into the equation in this situation. So, there's just a lot of interactions from lots of different places. However, if there was a larger space that we could do it in, up to it, including, could you go to the field house, like have it be real big type of thing. And in that case, could we hit a bunch of agenda items all at once to try to catch ourselves up or something? So those are just the thoughts. I will kind of back Heather up, I think, with someone who's ready to manage it and someone who's really, you know, technologically savvy and also moderator savvy, it can be done. I was part of an orientation that was meant to be interactive with, I think, 75 people. There was breakout groups, but when there wasn't, you just had a couple screens you had to go through, and you know, you had to use the different functions and just have someone that knows how to do it. And so, you know, I will say this, I'm not sure that we should be the guinea pigs of doing that for the town. Unless we want to do it with a low stakes type of agenda item at first and see how it goes. I just think that the combination of technology, new process, and a lot of people could get frustrating for anyone involved.
So I have a few things I can offer to many of your points. So one thing with regarding like the smaller agendas and more frequent meetings, I will say that I am in constant contact with the applicants that are currently before you, and then the ones that I know who are want to submit applications in the next few months. And we have sort of a mixed bag. We have a couple applications that are going through a redesign that will not be ready next month, most likely. The applicants who are planning on submitting projects in the next couple months are okay with waiting a little while. They might submit them just to get them in the queue, but they're not expecting to be scheduled, have hearings scheduled right away. And then there is at least one item that's relatively small that you've already discussed in live meetings that was continued for many months, that it's the 107 Main Street Fusilli's project that you probably could wrap up at your next meeting if you felt comfortable. They came to you and then they had to go back and get a use variance from the zoning board. And then I might be getting the order wrong. And then the engineer went out of town for 4 months. And so, but anyway, you have met in person on that one. So that's something that you could consider taking up in June remotely to get off your docket.
Yes, but that one had a lot of neighbor input. So
there was some
that's a hot topic one to start with. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, they're all hot topics, right? So,
right.
I mean, it's really just what you feel comfortable doing. I was just given that you'd already met in person on that, I thought maybe that was a possibility of one you could take up sooner. The other thing is, I know the Board of Health is meeting like multiple times a week. The Select Board's meeting once or twice a week, and there is a continuing operations plan that department heads and assistant department heads and a host of other people have been working on to try to kind of figure out what reopening would look like. The meeting aspect of it is a little bit, most of it's unclear, right? Still at this point as things continue to change. But I have been giving a lot of thought and talking to different people in town hall about like what to do about meetings. Like if we are open and can meet in person in some capacity, I think we will always have Zoom or some sort of virtual platform at our disposal. Like, I don't think that this type of format is going anywhere now that we have it and we're using it, because I think it can bring in additional people who may not be able to get to a meeting in person. And if we're doing sort of like social distancing in some capacity for many more months, it might be a way to kind of manage, like some people are in person and some people are remote. It's like a hybrid approach to things. So we have talked about having bigger spaces than the select board meeting room. And we will continue those conversations and try to put a plan in place for our future meetings when we might be live in some way. So thank you for all your feedback. Anyone else? Any thoughts?
Nope.
Nick? Tony?
Sorry. I'm disappointed I didn't realize I could have a virtual background for this.
Yeah.
Next time, though, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely.
All right.
There's traffic behind me, so I have to, allow for the traffic.
So I don't know if we have minutes ready. Andrew, do you remember?
I don't think we do. They at least weren't prepared enough to send in the drive, so I think we're okay.
Okay. That's something we'll try to work on for next month. And then
Yeah, definitely.
I guess, so I'm just trying to figure out what I'm hearing from you all about June 8th. Do you want to?
I think it depends to some degree on who's truly ready, right? We just continued 4, but like you said, they are not necessarily ready. I'm with Rachel that in the sense that we need to make sure that we don't overload ourselves in this format, because I think this is tough, for you to manage, and for us in general. So trying to make sure that we don't try and overload ourselves with like we usually do. But I guess I would be amenable to come June, if we're still in the same situation, to try it. Especially like the one you mentioned where we did already have some public input, and it's not new. That I think, and it's not a big, I'm going to say, right, it's very important to the neighborhood right there, but that's a small group of people, and I think a group that could have their voice in this and could be managed, right? I don't see 20 people being interested and involved in that, and that's I guess that's what makes me think of whether it's okay to proceed with something or not, is how many people might be involved or might be interested.
So to that point, if we do decide to go ahead with any of the hearings that we've put off for a couple months, we will re-notify the neighborhood and let them know. So everyone will be at least notified that we're going to talk about it again. So the tricky thing is, so I think the case can be made for at least that one, and potentially also your Smith Oil property, that since it has started in person, like the case could be made that you could maybe take it up remotely and make progress on it. But it is tricky opening the door for one applicant and not opening that same door for others. So that's just something we would have to figure out as well. And I do think, some of the projects that will be undergoing redesign may feel in some ways like a new or a different project. So that's another, obviously this is some, it's a little bit of art and a little bit of science, but it's not a one size fits all kind of situation. But
I guess one thing I'll be definitive on something. I am not comfortable in having an application go all the way where we typically require a public hearing for every public hearing that we have on that item between the time it opens and the time we make a decision, to have it all be on on Zoom. I don't think that's I'm not comfortable with that.
Right. And I think to that point, like any of the projects that feel like a redesign might cause kind of the same or a similar concern if it's almost like a new application.
Yep.
So the 4 projects that are currently continued that are on your agenda, they're all very different and they all have different unique challenges. So we just have to be careful with each one for different reasons, I think. So.
And so I guess if I think we need to make it clear to any of those applicants that even if we do take them up, we may not, we may or even may be likely to continue it, but at least we could get some of the business done if they're interested in that.
Okay, that's good. That's good because I'll start kind of communicating with them again about June and also with you, John, and we'll try to figure out what we're going to do. I haven't had any pushback yet from any of the applicants, which has been nice, you know. So it's just a matter of trying to meet them where they are a little bit if we can. All right, that's all for me.
Anyone feel like the Brady Bunch? Yeah.
This always makes me think of Hollywood Squares, which
oh, that's right.
I did actually. I watched the pilot of the Brady Bunch because I realized I never saw it. It's terrible. Terrible half hour of TV. It is terrible.
Some of us were raised on that.
It must have gotten slightly better, but like, whoo, yeah. So
You have to watch it just to understand the pop cultural references. And then the movies that they made in the 90s, I think, were much funnier.
I did see a meme of the Tiki.
Oh, the one that they lost in Hawaii?
This was like a month ago, and someone said, will someone go put that back where it belongs?
I saw that, and I got it.
Yeah. You didn't need to say anything else. Andrew has no idea what we're talking about.
I have no idea what you're talking about.
You're making me feel really young right now.
Go Google, Brady Bunch and Tiki, and it'll come up.
Yeah.
Too funny.
You guys are still, your meeting is still happening.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So, you have anything else, Julie, Andrew, that we should go over?
Not on my book.
Right.
I got nothing.
Great.
I'm good.
All right. Well, thank you, everyone. And I need another motion, right?
Yep.
Anyone?
Move to adjourn.
Second?
Second.
Can we just say all in favor?
Aye.
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 All right. Thank you, everyone.
Thank
Good
you,
to see you
Julie and
all.
Andrew.
All right. Take care.
Stay healthy.
Thank you.